When my parents separated 15 years ago, my little brother Daniel and I went to live with our father in a small Chicago apartment. Dad slept on the couch whilst me and Daniel shared the only bedroom. We were aged 6 and 8 and squabbled a lot, like most brothers do. My dad always seemed grouchy, and he'd often burst into the bedroom yelling for us to quit jumping on our beds and get to sleep. But 5 minutes later, we'd be goofing around again. We knew our dad's bark was worse than his bite. But one night, he hit upon a new tactic. "You kids never heard of the Sleep Olympics?" he said slyly. "Lie real quiet and still, and see who can fall asleep first. But you'd better be quick, for the sleep referee will be watching." Of course, this shit really fired our young imaginations. Next morning, we had about 1,000 questions about the sleep referee. But my dad just snapped back that we should get your silly asses to sleep and you'll never have to see him. Now quit bugging me. So every night, we'd try our hardest to fall asleep ASAP, which ain't all that easy when you're scared. I usually won, though. Daniel would often wake me up, sobbing in fear that the sleep referee might show up. I was wise enough to eventually suss that the whole thing was simply a ruse invented by Dad, but Daniel sure believed. Once or twice, he said he'd even heard the floorboards creak beside our beds, while he lay suppressing his shivers, too terrified to open his eyes. Daniel begged me to let him fall asleep first, but his nerves were so shot that he'd inevitably be the last one awake. The whole thing died a death eventually. My dad got a raise, so we moved to the suburbs with our own bedrooms. Plus, you just sort of grow out of these things, right? I'd pretty much forgotten all about it until I visited Daniel today, and boy, those memories came flooding back. We were reminiscing about those dark few months in that small apartment. Daniel sure had never forgotten about the sleep referee. He'd never previously told me that late one night, right before we'd moved away to the sticks, he'd opened his eyes for a moment and actually seen the ghoulish adjudicator stood watching us both. He described a gaunt figure with sunken black eyes wearing a long striped referee's shirt. Little Daniel never got to visit Mom in her secure psychiatric ward, but I did. Once, right before she died. I'll never forget how thin and pale she'd become, as if she was wasting away. She'd been refusing to eat. But it was okay, she calmly told me, sitting there in her long striped hospital issue gown. All she ever needed was to see her boys. My eyes wandered to the little window in her room. Surely too small for anyone to slip through, right?